Hello. Sew a quilted shoulder bag with me. You can choose between two bag sizes, mini and medium. You also have two strap length options, a shoulder strap or a longer strap that can be worn crossbody. The choice is yours. To sew this bag, you will need the main fabric, lining fabric, and batting. I used batting that is 1.5 centimeters thick with a weight of 200 GSM. You will also need the sewing pattern, which is available in my Etsy shop. The link can be found in the description below. For the strap openings, you will need bag eyelets or a sewing machine capable of creating buttonhole-style openings. Optional for this bag, a magnetic snap closure, plastic piping cord for a more professional finish and improved bag structure. You will also need an iron and basic sewing tools. Once you have assembled the pattern and cut out all pattern pieces, trace them onto your fabric and cut the pieces with extra allowance. For example, as simple rectangles, just as I did. First, secure the fabric to the batting by stitching around the edges, approximately 5 millimeters, about 0.2 inches from the edge. Then, wherever the pattern indicates quilting lines, sew the quilting. After all quilting is complete, cut the pieces along the previously traced lines. For this project, I used a fabric marking pen that disappears when exposed to heat from an iron. Do not press the iron directly onto the fabric, as this may flatten the batting. Instead, I use hot steam only, without pressure, to remove the marker lines and gently reloft the batting. The batting was stored rolled up, so steaming helps restore its volume and shape. Now, let's move on to attaching the piping with plastic cord. Please keep in mind that this step is optional. If you don't have piping cord, your bag will still look great. I personally like using it because it adds a subtle decorative detail, and it also helps the bag hold its shape better. Important. For this step, you will need a narrow presser foot that allows you to sew close to the edge. After stitching the entire piping tunnel with the plastic cord inside, mark the center of this piece. Make sure to determine the center based on the cord itself, not the fabric. The fabric is intentionally cut longer so it can be folded in at the ends and the excess trimmed away. Start sewing from the center. This will make the entire process much easier. I secure the piping by stitching the center point and both ends at the spot marked on the pattern as Start Piping. The remaining sections are eased in along the curves, slowly and carefully. Important: make small notches along the curved areas. This will make it much easier to ease the fabric and sew the piping smoothly. At this stage, join the bottom panel of the bag with the side panels. After stitching, I recommend opening the seam and top stitching it. This will add extra stability and give the bag a more professional finish. In this step, we will attach the previously joined panels around the perimeter of the bag. Here as well, I recommend starting to sew from the center. Just like before, I secure the center point and the ends first, then slowly and evenly ease in the remaining sections. If you chose to add piping, make sure to use a narrow presser foot in this step as well, as it allows you to sew close to the edge. I adjust the stitching whenever I notice that the panels are not sitting directly against the piping. In this step, we will make the bag closure, the drawstrings. You can skip this step if you decide to use a magnetic snap instead. For this tutorial, I'm showing both options. Fold the drawstring piece the way I demonstrate in the video, then stitch it with a narrow seam. Try to fold the raw ends inward so you don't leave any frayed edges visible. This piece is quite narrow, so it requires precision. Sew slowly and carefully. Attach the drawstrings at the center of the main bag panel on both sides. In this step, we will make the cords that allow you to adjust the length of your bag strap. Because this piece is long, you will need to join two fabric strips together. I do this on the bias, which prevents bulk and gives a cleaner, more professional look. Place the two strips together as shown in the video and stitch them at an angle. Then trim away the excess and press the seam open. Fold the long edges of the strip toward the center and stitch the entire length with a narrow seam, using the same method as for the bag closure drawstrings. At a later stage, when you adjust the strap length to your preference, we will trim away the excess. Keep in mind, however, that once the cords are shortened, you will no longer be able to adjust the strap to its maximum length, as the cords will be shorter than the strap itself. For this reason, make sure you are completely certain about how much strap length and adjustability you want before trimming. You may also choose not to trim the excess cords at all, but be aware that they will be quite long and may be less practical in use. In this step, join the strap pieces together. Make the seam along the wider end of the strap. This marks the center point of the strap. Repeat the same process for the second strap piece. Then press the seams open. Next, install the bag eyelets on one of the strap pieces, or create buttonholes using your sewing machine. The exact placement of the openings is indicated on the pattern. Then, place the two identical strap pattern pieces right sides together and stitch them together. Trim the seam allowance by half on both sides. Using a safety pin, carefully turn the entire strap right side out. After turning, top stitch close to the edge with a narrow, millimeter-wide seam to stabilize the strap and give it a clean, professional finish. Finally, sew the tunnels for the cords. I marked the stitching lines with a heat-erasable fabric marker to help keep the lines straight and neat. In this step, attach the bag handles. Make sure that the openings for the cords are facing outward from the bag. Pay close attention to this during attachment. Also be careful not to twist the handle. This can be easy to miss due to the gathered structure of the handle, which tends to flip while sewing. In this step, join the bag-facing pieces together. After stitching, I recommend opening the seam and top stitching it for added stability. Next, place the facing onto the bag as shown in the video and attach it to the bag. Top stitch the seam toward the inside of the bag to prevent it from rolling outward. You don't need to stitch from edge to edge. Starting and stopping a few centimeters from each edge is sufficient. Then, press and shape the entire piece using an iron and steam. At this stage, you can apply gentle pressure with the iron. The batting will compress slightly, which will help stiffen and stabilize the overall shape of the bag. However, use caution and work gradually to avoid flattening the quilted areas too much, as they create the three-dimensional effect. Keep in mind that shaping with steam and an iron is an essential step in any sewing project. In this step, adjust the strap length and trim the cords accordingly. Finish the ends using cord ends or other closures designed for this purpose. Alternatively, you can carefully unpick the seam, fold the fabric ends inward, and stitch them closed again, just as you did for the drawstring closures. If you prefer, you may also leave the cords untrimmed. However, they are quite long and may be impractical during use. If you chose the shorter shoulder strap, you can skip this step entirely. This step applies only to the longer crossbody strap. Now sew the lining pieces together, the sides and the bottom, remembering to leave an opening for turning the bag right side out. Next, attach the lining to the bag facing. Turn the bag right side out through the opening, then close the opening in the lining with a narrow seam. Shape the entire bag by hand and with the help of an iron and steam, and you're done. You've just sewn your own quilted bag. This bag works beautifully with materials such as faux leather, denim, cotton, or, as in my case, viscose. Thanks to the use of batting, you have endless possibilities to create a truly unique bag. Thank you for watching this tutorial. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or reach out to me on social media. You'll find all the links in the description. And if you make your own version, be sure to tag me. I absolutely love seeing your creations. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with future projects.